All right, welcome. So this video is using habits to become more productive. So this video is just going to teach you guys exactly how you can use your daily habits, or you can implement certain habits in order to make yourself more productive. So we're going to get right into the video with how we can use habits to become more productive. So habits are automatic behaviors that we perform, again, automatically off of a trigger. So habits are simply behaviors that we perform automatically, right? And so the key with habits when it comes to being more productive is we can optimize our day, we can optimize our lifestyle to include habits that increase productivity over time, therefore making us more effective, right? And another thing that we can do is we can make habits out of the specific productive work that we need to do in order to optimize for flow state within that work, therefore allowing ourselves to be more productive and produce more with the same amount of time. So the way that we use habits to become more productive is by simply including habits or picking specific habits that will optimize our workflow, optimize our lifestyle for the most possible productivity. So an example of this is basically with my workday, I have a specific set of habits that get me into a flow state, that get me ready to start this day, right? And then everything that I have within my workday, everything within my actual work block is also habitual, right? Everything is a ritual that I've created and specific habits that I've placed in certain places to optimize for the most possible productivity, right? And so I may have just overcomplicated that explanation, but basically all I'm saying is everything that I do that isn't high demand or high leverage, right? The specific high leverage tasks, everything else other than those specific high leverage tasks is a habit that is specifically placed, specifically optimized to make my workflow as easy as possible. So that way, when I do get into workflow, it is just pure flow state and pure focus on the actual highest leverage task. So I'm going to use the example of basically my workday here, right? So what I do with my workday here. My morning routine is a set of 4 habits that I perform every single day at the same time. And once I'm done, that is a trigger, right? So we talked about habit stacks in my last habit video. If you haven't seen that, go ahead and watch it. But that is a habit stack that triggers the beginning of my workday, right? So once I finish my walk, I know that it's time to start working. And so I finish my walk, I come in here, I set everything up. That's another habit, right? Setup is a habit. So I've created a habit of coming in here, getting my notebook out, getting my mic and everything ready, getting set up, taking my thumbnail, picking the video, taking my thumbnail, and then I leave it on the screen to start recording. So that way, by the time I have time to procrastinate, I'm one click away from starting. Right? And so that's one habit that optimizes for getting me here, right? Getting me ready to start. So that way then, okay, I'm here, I'm ready. I didn't have to think much about that process. So now it's time to start thinking. Now I'm like, okay, now it's time to start the actual workday. Whereas a lot of people struggle with all of these steps to get themselves to the point where they're actually working, right? A lot of people struggle with the whole process of picking a time in the day, finding time, getting distracted all the time, not having the right work habits in order to optimize for productivity and flow state. So depending on the habits that you have, you can make work a lot easier and a lot more efficient, or you can actually make it so that you're wasting time, wasting energy on things that don't even really move the needle forward. So how do we build new habits? I just created a video that is in detail on how to build habits, but if you haven't watched that, or if you have and you just want a refresher, we're going to explain exactly how to build habits. So the step-by-step process for building habits is you have to start with what the habit is, right? So what habit are you trying to start? Why are you trying to start it, right? What is the goal? What is the intention for this habit? And then what is the actual habit you're trying to start? Then you decide exactly where to place this habit in your day, right? So where do you place this habit in your daily structure? For example, let's say I wanted to make the habit of setting up my work environment a specific way, right? Let's say I wanted to make the habit of getting in here and getting myself ready to work. Because that for me is a habit, and I've made that a habit because I feel like that's a very important thing for my flow state, is being able to just get everything set up and lock in. So let's say that's the habit you want to start. what time of day, right? For me, it's around 7:15 a.m. But that part doesn't really matter because I'm not going to show up here at 7:15 and set up my recording setup if I'm not recording that day, or if I woke up late, for example, and I'm not done with my walk, right? So it's not so much the time, but when I'm finishing my walk right before I record, this specific habit is going to be triggered, right? That's the specific time for that habit, the specific location and time for that habit, right? Location's another thing. Where are you doing it, right? I do it at the apartment, right? This is my dad's apartment, set up like an office space. We kind of share this office space. He has one room, I have another. So for me, the office, right? Whenever I show up here at the office, then it's time for work. And so I have my location, I have my time, I have the certain habits that are around that specific task and that specific habit. And then the last thing is just do it and do it consistently, right? So once you've done it consistently over a long period of time, 2 weeks to a month is a good time to shoot for, you will habitualize that specific process. And so once you've made a habit of that process, it's an automatic behavior that you can then trigger whenever you want, right? And obviously you can override it. It's not like just because you created a habit, you can only ever do that habit. But once you have a habit ingrained, it's very easy to trigger that habit and follow through on it. And so what habits can actually support productivity? What are some habits? What are some examples of habits that can support productivity? So the first one is meditation. Meditation is a great habit to have before work. It's a great habit to have in between work bouts. If you need a break, don't go on your phone and scroll. You can meditate. Meditation will be a great step in between, and it'll help you recenter and refocus. So that way when you come back to work, you'll be refreshed and actually able to lock it in again. Versus if you scroll, you'll just waste more mental energy, make yourself more exhausted by the next time you want to work. The next thing is reading. Reading is a great alternative to social media as well because it's actual learning. You'll actually be able to take in the information and learn valuable knowledge from it. And it is also just really good for your brain to be reading. And in general, if you're learning more, you'll have more to apply, and therefore you'll be slightly more productive. The next thing is journaling. So journaling is going to be important for processing your thoughts, processing everything in your mind, and therefore having clarity, having intention, and also it's just a way for you to learn how to articulate your thoughts into words as well. Exercise is really important. Obviously, everybody needs to be exercising. If you're exercising consistently, you'll be more productive, in my opinion, and that's a guarantee. Even though it takes 2 to 4 hours a day for me, personally, I train a lot. So because it's up to 2 to 4 hours a day, that's a lot of time I'm technically losing on productive work or business work. But I believe that the return on investment is great because I feel like I am much, much more productive when I'm training consistently as well. So the next thing is breath work. Breath work is going to be important for learning to control and regulate your nervous system in order to keep yourself in a state where you can stay focused, because if you can't control and you can't regulate the nervous system, you're going to have a very hard time when it comes to work, because work can be stressful. If you get stressed and you can't decompress the nervous system, it's a very difficult thing to deal with, honestly. This is where a lot of chronic stress comes for most people. This is where a lot of nervous system issues come from, and overall just having hypertension or tension in general is because you can't properly regulate your nervous system. So breath work is important, and it's also good to know how to get oxygen into your cells. And I don't mean just like fully breathe and actually fill up your lungs and fill up your cells, get energy into your nervous system with oxygen. If you don't know that oxygen is nervous energy, you got to go do some research. But if you can't get energy into the nervous system and oxygen into the cells, you're going to have a very hard time with everything. Exercise, work, and even just any stressful situation you may face in your day-to-day life. So the next habit is deep work. So the reason I say deep work as a habit is because if you have a habit of every time you have a specific task to complete, you go into a state of deep work. You give yourself an hour or 2 hours of zero distractions, just focusing on working. You'll be able to produce a lot more. You'll be a lot more productive. You'll be able to have a lot more outcome or output from the work that you do. And the next thing, the last thing for this list of habits is micro habits. Micro habits are essentially just any small habits that support your ability to be productive. When I'm training, I have a resistance barrier to getting out there and set up, right? For whatever reason. I don't like grabbing my board and walking to the trampoline. I don't know why. But a micro habit would be, okay, I'm not thinking about training, but I'm thinking about this new micro habit, right? So this micro habit is to grab my board, grab my setup, get my camera set up and recording and ready to go. And then I'm out there, everything is set up for me, everything is ready to go. Then the next thing that I think about, the next habit that I trigger from there is to warm up. And then my warm up triggers me to start to get into some bigger tricks. And then as I get into that triggers the next thing. So micro habits are essentially just small habits that allow you to optimize productivity. So another example of a micro habit is my pre-work ritual, is the thing that I do when I show up, my setup. Everything is exactly habitualized, right? So everything I specifically set up in a specific order to keep it a habit, so that way I can just automatically run it and not have to think about it. Therefore, I don't have to stress about work and do all these steps to get there. I can just think about completion of the micro habit and then completion of the video and then so on and so forth. So micro habits are essentially things that you can do and make into habits that would make your workflow easier. So using habits to optimize workflow, right? How do we use habits to optimize workflow? I basically explained already, right? I gave you a lot of examples on how you can use your specific habits to optimize your workflow. But a good example of this is to simply look at it like this. Basically, each block of your day should be a set of habits, right? So you want to have your high leverage tasks, the things that really need to get done. And then around those high leverage tasks, you have supporting habits, right? Things like meditation, journaling, and reading are great. Exercise blocks are great, right? Training blocks are great. And then you have micro habits as well that optimize workflow, that optimize your ability to keep things going in a smooth and continuous motion, right? A continuous flow state throughout your entire day. So, for example, micro habits may be how I unpack my bag when I get here, how I pack it back up when I'm done, right? What I do with my bag when I go home. Right? All of these things, if you turn them into micro habits, they become things you no longer need to think about. And so everything is always in its exact place that you need it to be in order for you to work in a seamless flow. So that is all I have for this video. I do hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a comment down below. Let me know anything you may have learned and let me know anything I may have missed as well. You can let me know things I may have missed or things you would prefer I add. Any video ideas and suggestions are also welcome. And if you want to see more content like this, you could go ahead and subscribe to the channel, or you could also check out my Instagram and my TikTok, both of which are linked in the description below. But that is all I have, and I hope you guys did enjoy. Peace.